Imagine spending your entire life searching for something, only to discover it was never missing. Imagine crossing oceans, risking death, enduring years of hardship, studying under masters, meditating until your legs felt like fire, and then realizing that the very thing you were seeking could never be gained because it had never been absent. This is the story of Dogen, one of the most influential Zen masters in history. A man whose discovery would challenge nearly everything people believe about spiritual awakening. Even today, centuries later, millions still approach spirituality as a project, a ladder to climb, a destination to reach, a future version of themselves to become. Dogen would say they are making the same mistake he once made, because enlightenment is not something you achieve. And the moment you understand why, your entire relationship with life begins to change. But to appreciate the depth of this realization, we must begin at the beginning. And the beginning was not enlightenment, it was doubt. Dogen was born in Japan in the year 1200. The country was entering a turbulent era. Political power was shifting. Wars and instability were common. The old Buddhist institutions remained powerful, but many sincere seekers felt something essential had been lost. Among them was a young boy named Dogen. Historical sources tell us that tragedy struck early. His mother died when he was still young. According to traditional accounts, watching the incense smoke rise during her funeral left a profound impression on him. Everything passes. Everything changes. Nothing remains. The reality of impermanence was no longer an abstract teaching. It became a wound in his heart. And from that wound arose a question that would shape his entire life. If all beings possess Buddha nature, as the scriptures teach, why is spiritual practice necessary at all? This was not a casual curiosity. It was a crisis. The Buddhist texts seemed to contain a contradiction. On one hand, they declared that all beings already possess Buddha nature. On the other hand, they insisted on years of discipline and practice. If we already have it, why seek it? If we don't have it, how can the scriptures claim we do? Most people would have accepted a simple answer. Dogen could not. The question burned inside him, and eventually it drove him to leave everything behind. As a young monk, Dogen trained on Mount Hiei, the center of the powerful Tendai Buddhist tradition. The mountain was filled with brilliant scholars. The libraries contained centuries of learning, yet something felt incomplete. He encountered countless explanations, but none satisfied his deepest doubt. He wanted certainty, not intellectual certainty, existential certainty. He wanted to know directly, what is awakening? What is Buddha nature? What is the true purpose of practice? The answers he found around him seemed increasingly inadequate. Eventually, he concluded that he needed to go to the source, China. At that time, the journey was dangerous. Crossing the sea meant risking storms, disease, and death. Many never returned, yet Dogen felt he had no choice. If truth existed, it was worth everything. And so, in 1223, he boarded a ship and sailed into the unknown. What happened next would change the course of Zen history. The young monk arrived in China with enormous expectations. Surely, he thought, somewhere there must be a master who possesses the final answer. Somewhere there must be a teacher who can resolve his doubt. But reality was not so simple. For years, Dogen visited monasteries and studied under respected teachers. He observed practices, attended teachings, engaged in rigorous training, yet the breakthrough remained elusive. Then one day, he met the teacher who would transform his life, Tiantong Rujing, a master of the Caodong tradition, which later became Soto Zen in Japan. Dogen immediately sensed something different. Rujing was not interested in philosophical speculation. He was not concerned with spiritual status. He did not emphasize mystical experiences. He pointed relentlessly toward direct practice, toward simple sitting, toward immediate reality. And under his guidance, Dogen entered a period of intense training. What happened there would become one of the most famous moments in Zen history. One night during meditation, a monk sitting nearby became drowsy. Seeing this, Rujing sharply rebuked him. According to traditional accounts, he shouted, "Zazen is the dropping off of body and mind. Why are you sleeping?" For most people, these words would have been just another teaching. For Dogen, they struck like lightning. Something shattered, or perhaps more accurately, something unnecessary fell away. Later, Dogen described his experience with a phrase that became central to his teaching. Shinjin Datsuraku. Body and mind dropped away. Notice what he did not say. He did not say he achieved enlightenment. He did not say he attained a higher state. He did not say he became special. Instead, something dropped away. Something false. Something extra. Something he had been carrying unnecessarily. The search itself. The striving. The endless attempt to become something other than what he already was. And this insight changed everything. Most spiritual seekers imagine awakening as an acquisition. They believe they lack something: peace, wisdom, freedom, enlightenment. Then they devote themselves to obtaining it. Their entire practice is built upon a hidden assumption: I am not there yet. Dogen came to see this assumption as the root problem. Because every attempt to achieve enlightenment reinforces the belief that enlightenment is absent. The seeker creates separation, a gap between present reality and imagined perfection, and then spends years trying to cross a gap that exists only in thought. This does not mean practice is unnecessary. Far from it. Dogen dedicated his entire life to practice, but he understood practice differently. Practice was not a means to enlightenment. Practice was enlightenment expressing itself. This distinction changes everything. Imagine a musician. Does she play music to become musical, or does music express itself through her playing? Imagine a flower. Does it bloom to become a flower, or is blooming precisely what being a flower means? Dogen would say Zazen, seated meditation, is not preparation for Buddhahood. It is Buddhahood in action. This insight became the heart of his teaching. Practice and realization are one, not two separate things, not a cause and an effect, not a journey from deficiency to completion. One reality, one expression. In Japanese, this is often described as shusho ito, practice realization, a single reality. To modern ears, this may sound abstract, so let's bring it closer. Imagine washing dishes. Most people treat the activity as an obstacle, something standing between them and what they really want. Their mind is somewhere else, the future, the next task, the next achievement, the next moment. But what if there is no next moment that contains life more fully than this one? What if the dishwashing itself is complete? What if reality is not hiding elsewhere? This is where Dogen directs our attention, again and again, to this, to now, to the activity immediately before us. Not because it is spiritually impressive, but because it is reality itself. This became especially clear in Dogen's writings. His masterpiece, the Shobogenzo, remains one of the most profound works in Buddhist literature. Throughout its pages, he repeatedly challenges ordinary assumptions. People think time carries them through life. Dogen asks them to look again. People think they are separate from the world. Dogen asks them to look again. People think enlightenment exists somewhere ahead. Dogen asks them to look again. One of his most famous teachings concerns time itself. He argued that existence is time, not that things exist within time, but that existence and time are inseparable. A mountain is time. A river is time. You are time. This moment is not merely a point along a timeline leading somewhere else. It is complete, entire, infinite in its own way. And if this sounds difficult to understand intellectually, that is precisely Dogen's point. Reality is not captured by concepts. It must be lived. Here is the irony. The harder people chase enlightenment, the farther it seems to recede. The more desperately they seek awakening, the more convinced they become that they lack it. The search creates the seeker. The seeker creates the problem. And the problem sustains the search. An endless loop. Dogen saw this clearly. That is why his teaching feels so radical even today. He invites us to stop treating awakening as a future possession, not because awakening does not exist, but because reality is already presenting itself completely, right now, through this breath, this sound, this step, this ordinary moment. The extraordinary is hidden inside the ordinary, not beyond it, not after it, not separate from it. Yet there is another misunderstanding we must avoid. Some hear this teaching and conclude, then I don't need to practice. Dogen would strongly disagree. He spent decades practicing, teaching, writing, training monks, establishing monasteries. His realization did not lead to passivity, it led to deeper commitment. Because when practice is no longer a tool for self-improvement, it becomes an expression of gratitude, an expression of reality itself. You sit because sitting is complete. You practice because practice is complete. You awaken because awakening is not elsewhere. This is why Dogen emphasized just sitting, not sitting to gain something, not sitting to become something, just sitting, completely, wholeheartedly, without bargaining, without chasing, without calculating spiritual profit, simply sitting. And in that simplicity lies a depth many never discover. Near the end of his life, Dogen had become one of Japan's most respected Buddhist teachers. Students traveled long distances to learn from him, yet he never presented himself as someone who possessed a special achievement. Again and again, he directed attention back to practice, back to immediacy, back to this moment. The place everyone overlooks, the place everyone leaves behind while searching elsewhere. The place where awakening has always been waiting, not hidden, not distant, simply unnoticed. Dogen died in 1253. More than 7 centuries have passed since then. Empires have risen and fallen. Technologies have transformed the world. Entire civilizations have changed. Yet the human mind remains remarkably similar. We still believe happiness lies somewhere ahead. We still imagine fulfillment as a future acquisition. We still postpone life while preparing for life. And that is why Dogen's message remains so powerful. Perhaps enlightenment is not a trophy waiting at the end of a spiritual journey. Perhaps it is not something to possess. Perhaps it is not an achievement at all. Perhaps what needs to happen is not the acquisition of something new, but the dropping away of something unnecessary. The dropping away of endless striving, the dropping away of separation, the dropping away of the belief that reality is somewhere other than here. This was Dogen's profound discovery. Not that awakening must be achieved, but that awakening is revealed when the obsession with achieving finally falls away. And perhaps that is the question he leaves with us today. If you stop trying to become enlightened for a moment, if you stop chasing the next spiritual experience, if you stopped searching for the missing piece, what remains? Dogen spent his life pointing toward that mystery, not in some distant heaven, not in some future life, not at the end of a long road, but here, in this breath, in this moment, exactly as it is.